Christmas Eve, 1887. A stagecoach hurtled through a wall of white, its wheels screaming against frozen earth, its horses wild-eyed and frothing as the blizzard tried to swallow them whole. Inside that coach, 4 women clung to each other, knuckles white, prayers silent, hearts pounding with a terror that had nothing to do with the storm, because the storm behind them was far worse than the one ahead. Outside a weathered ranch house in Copper Ridge, Wyoming, 4 brothers stood shoulder to shoulder, squinting into the chaos of wind and snow, waiting for something they didn't fully understand. They had each received a letter, they had each sent a train ticket, and they had each expected one woman, a stranger who might become a wife. What none of them knew, what would shatter every expectation they carried, was that those 4 letters had reached the same desperate household, been answered by the same desperate hands, and were about to deliver not 4 strangers, but 4 sisters, bound by blood, fleeing the same nightmare, and carrying secrets that could either save the Callahan legacy or burn it to the ground. Now, before I tell you what happened when that stagecoach door swung open, I need you to do something for me. If you have ever taken a chance on love, if you have ever made a decision that terrified you but felt absolutely necessary, hit that like button right now. And if you want to see how 4 lonely brothers and 4 desperate sisters turned one frozen Christmas Eve into a love story that would echo through generations, subscribe and stay with me, because this story is about to change everything you think you know about fate, family, and the courage it takes to build a life from nothing. Copper Ridge, Wyoming was not a town so much as a stubborn refusal to surrender. Perched in a valley between mountains that touched the clouds, it was a place where winter arrived in October and did not leave until May, where the wind carried the scent of pine and desperation in equal measure. The nearest railroad was 40 miles east. The nearest city might as well have been the moon. People did not come to Copper Ridge for opportunity. They came because they had nowhere else to go. The Callahan Ranch sprawled across 300 acres of timber and grazing land, a kingdom of rough-hewn logs and honest sweat, built by Jedediah Callahan 40 years prior and left to his 4 sons when consumption claimed him 5 winters ago. Their mother had followed him into the ground, 6 months later, dead, the doctor said, of pneumonia. But the brothers knew the truth. She died of heartbreak. And so the 4 Callahan boys, men now, though it seemed cruel to call them that when circumstance had never allowed them the luxury of youth, were left alone in a house built for laughter that now held only silence. Wyatt Callahan stood at the frost-covered window, watching the storm devour the horizon. At 32, he was the eldest, a man carved from the same timber he harvested, broad-shouldered and unyielding, with hands that could gentle a spooked horse or fell a 50-foot pine with equal precision. But his eyes told a different story. 3 years ago, he had buried his wife Clara and the son she died trying to deliver. He had lowered 2 coffins into frozen ground and felt something inside him freeze just as permanently. He ran the ranch now. He ran the lumber mill. He ran his brothers' lives with the same grim efficiency he applied to everything else. But he had not truly lived. Not really, since that grave swallowed his future. Behind him, Garrett Callahan sat in the corner, methodically cleaning a rifle he had already cleaned twice that day. 28 years old, former cavalry, hero of 3 campaigns against hostile forces in the Dakota Territory, or so his military commendations claimed. What the commendations did not mention were the nightmares, the cold sweats, the way loud noises made him flinch like a whipped dog. Garrett had come home from the army whole in body, but shattered in ways no one could see. He barely spoke anymore. When he did, his voice came out rough, like he had forgotten how words were supposed to work. At the kitchen table, Silas Callahan hunched over a mess of gears and springs, his spectacles sliding down his nose as he muttered calculations under his breath. 24 years old, the brilliant one, the strange one. While his brothers had learned to rope cattle and swing axes, Silas had taught himself engineering from their father's battered library. He built contraptions, water pumps that worked without horses, heating systems that channeled warmth through the entire house, mechanical devices that their neighbors viewed with equal parts wonder and suspicion. He was a genius, born in the wrong place and time, and he knew it. The loneliness of being perpetually misunderstood had taught him to stammer in the presence of strangers, to retreat into his machines, because machines, at least, made sense. And then there was Tobias. At 21, Toby Callahan was all sunshine and stubbornness, the baby of the family who refused to accept that his brothers had given up on happiness. While Wyatt drowned in responsibility, Garrett hid from his demons, and Silas disappeared into his inventions, Toby watched and worried. And finally, 6 months ago, did something about it. The letters had started as an act of desperation. Toby had found the matrimonial advertisement in a discarded newspaper, a service that connected unmarried women in the East with frontier men seeking wives. Matrimonial Harmony Agency, connecting hearts across the miles. His brothers would never admit they were lonely. They would never acknowledge that the silence in the house was slowly killing them all. So Toby took matters into his own hands. 4 letters, written in 4 different styles. For Wyatt, he wrote as a successful rancher seeking a practical partner, a woman of strength and capability who could match his eldest brother's intensity. For Garrett, he crafted words of a quiet man seeking peace, someone who might understand silence and would not demand explanations for the shadows in his eyes. For Silas, he described a thinker, a dreamer, someone who might see genius where others saw oddity. And for himself, he simply asked for kindness, someone gentle, someone good. He forged their signatures. He intercepted the responses. And when 4 letters arrived from 4 different women, women who seemed perfect, almost too perfect, he sent 4 train tickets without telling a soul. The tickets were dated for December 23rd, Christmas Eve arrival. His Christmas gift to a family that had forgotten what joy felt like. What Toby did not know, could not possibly have known, was that those 4 letters had landed in the same cramped Philadelphia apartment, had been read by the same 4 pairs of desperate eyes, had represented salvation to 4 sisters running out of time and options, and that those sisters had made a decision of their own. They would all go, they would stay together, and they would tell no one they were family, not until they were certain it was safe. The blizzard had been building since noon. By 4 o'clock, it was a living thing, howling, hungry, determined to bury Copper Ridge beneath a white tomb. Wyatt had checked on the livestock twice. Garrett had reinforced the barn doors. Silas had rigged an additional heating element to keep the pipes from freezing. And Toby had paced. "They are not coming," Garrett said flatly, not looking up from his rifle. "No stagecoach driver is fool enough to push through this." "Hank Morrison is," Toby countered, his voice tight with anxiety. "He has made this run-in worse. There is no worse than this." Wyatt turned from the window. His gaze found Toby and held. "Something you want to tell us, little brother?" The words hung in the air. Toby's mouth went dry. He had planned to confess. He had planned to explain everything before the women arrived, to beg forgiveness, to make his brothers understand that he was trying to save them from themselves. But the storm had come too fast. The stagecoach was supposed to arrive at noon. It was now approaching 5. And if those women had died in the blizzard because of his scheme— "I hear something," Silas said suddenly, his head snapping up from his work. They all heard it, the distant crack of a whip, the muffled thunder of hooves, the grinding shriek of wooden wheels on frozen ground. And then, emerging from the white chaos like a ghost ship, breaking through fog, the stagecoach. Wyatt was the first out the door, his brothers close behind. The coach lurched to a stop before the house, horses screaming and stamping, steam rising from their heaving flanks. Hank Morrison half fell from the driver's seat, his face raw and red, ice crystallized in his beard. "Got your cargo, Callahan," he shouted over the wind. 4 of them. Nearly killed us all, but we made it. Wyatt did not understand. 4? He had not sent for anyone. He turned to demand answers, but Toby was already pushing past him, yanking open the stagecoach door with trembling hands, and then silence. Because inside that coach, huddled together under thin blankets, faces pale with cold and fear, were 4 women. 4 women who looked up at the brothers with identical eyes, the same shade of storm gray, the same shape, the same unmistakable resemblance. And in that frozen moment, as the blizzard howled and the horses stamped and the world seemed to hold its breath, Wyatt Callahan understood that whatever was about to happen would change everything. One of the women, the eldest, he would later learn, met his gaze without flinching. Her voice cut through the wind like a blade. "Mr. Callahan, I presume we have much to discuss." What happened next would test everything the Callahan brothers believed about trust, family, and the true meaning of home. 4 mail-order brides who turned out to be sisters. 4 brothers bound by blood and silence. And one Christmas Eve, that would become legend. The wind howled like a wounded animal, tearing at coats and stealing breath, but nobody moved. 8 people stood frozen in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the truth hanging between them like smoke that refused to clear. Wyatt's mind raced through possibilities, rejecting each one as quickly as it formed. 4 women. 4 identical sets of eyes. This was not coincidence. This was not a mistake by some matrimonial agency. This was something else entirely. "Get them inside," Garrett said, his voice cutting through the paralysis. "Whatever this is, it can wait until they are warm." It was the most words he had spoken in weeks, and the authority in his tone surprised even his brothers. But he was right. The women were shivering violently, their lips tinged blue, their thin eastern coats no match for a Wyoming blizzard. Wyatt nodded once and stepped back from the coach door, gesturing toward the house. "Ladies, please." The eldest woman moved first, gathering her skirts and descending with a dignity that seemed almost defiant, given the circumstances. She was striking rather than beautiful, with sharp cheekbones and auburn hair that had escaped its pins during the journey. Her eyes, that distinctive storm gray, held intelligence and wariness in equal measure. Behind her came a second woman, younger and fiercer, her jaw set in a way that suggested she was ready to fight anyone and anything. She looked at the brothers like they were obstacles to be overcome rather than potential husbands. The third woman emerged quietly, almost apologetically, clutching a leather satchel to her chest, as if it contained everything precious in the world. She was gentle-featured and pale, and she flinched when the wind gusted particularly hard. And finally, the youngest. She could not have been more than 19, with honey-colored hair and a face that should have held innocence, but instead carried shadows too heavy for her years. She kept her gaze downward, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. The brothers ushered them toward the house, Toby grabbing what luggage he could from the coach, while Silas helped Hank Morrison stable the exhausted horses in the barn. Inside, the warmth hit the women like a physical force. The eldest one, the one who had spoken, actually swayed on her feet before catching herself against the doorframe. "Sit," Wyatt commanded, pulling chairs closer to the fire. "All of you. Toby, get blankets. Garrett, heat some coffee." For several minutes, no one spoke. The only sounds were the crackling fire, the howling wind outside, and the chattering of teeth slowly subsiding. The brothers moved around the women with awkward efficiency, draping quilts over trembling shoulders and pressing warm cups into frozen hands. Finally, when color had begun to return to the women's faces, Wyatt pulled a chair opposite them and sat down heavily. "I am going to ask this once," he said, his voice low and controlled, "and I expect the truth. Who are you?" The eldest woman set down her coffee cup with deliberate care. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and met his gaze with an unflinching directness that Wyatt found both irritating and oddly admirable. "My name is Margaret Whitmore," she said. "These are my sisters, Josephine, Cordelia, and Violet." She gestured to each in turn. "We responded to advertisements in the Matrimonial Harmony Gazette, seeking wives for the Callahan brothers of Copper Ridge. We received train tickets. We are here." "Sisters," Garrett repeated from his position by the wall. His arms were crossed, his expression unreadable. "You expect us to believe that 4 sisters independently answered 4 separate advertisements and only discovered this coincidence on the journey?" "No, the fierce one," Josephine shot back. "We expect you to believe that 4 sisters in desperate circumstances saw 4 opportunities to escape and seized every single one of them. Together." The word hung in the air like a challenge. "We stay together," Margaret continued, her voice hardening. "That was our condition from the beginning. Whatever arrangements were proposed in those letters, we modified them. We are a family. We will not be separated." Wyatt turned slowly to look at Toby, who had gone very pale and was clutching a stack of blankets like a shield. "Toby," Wyatt said, and his voice was terrifyingly calm. "Would you like to explain to me why 4 women are sitting in our parlor on Christmas Eve? 4 women I never sent for?" The silence that followed was excruciating. "I wrote the letters," Toby finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wrote them for all of us. I signed your names. I sent the tickets." Silas, who had just returned from the barn, stopped dead in the doorway. "You did what?" "You were dying," Toby burst out, the words tumbling over each other now that the dam had broken. "All of you!" "Wyatt, you have not smiled since Clara passed. You work yourself into the ground and call it living. Garrett, you barely speak anymore. You sit in the dark with your rifle and your nightmares, and you think we do not hear you screaming at 3 in the morning. And Silas, you have built 100 machines, but you cannot build a single friendship because you have convinced yourself that no one will ever understand you." He was breathing hard now, tears threatening at the corners of his eyes. "This house is a tomb, It has been a tomb since Mama died, and I could not watch it kill you anymore. I could not. So, I did something. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was wrong. But I did something, because someone had to." The brothers stared at their youngest sibling, the weight of his words settling over them like the snow, settling over the valley outside. Margaret Whitmore watched this exchange with growing understanding. She saw the grief etched into Wyatt's face, the haunted emptiness in Garrett's eyes, the lonely intelligence in Silas, and the desperate hope in Toby. She saw four men who had lost their way, fumbling toward something they could not name. She recognized them, because she and her sisters were exactly the same. "We are not here to deceive you," she said quietly, drawing all attention back to her. "We are here because we had no other choice. Our circumstances in Philadelphia had become untenable, dangerous even. When these letters arrived, they seemed like providence, a way out, a chance at something better." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "We understood from the beginning that this was an unconventional arrangement. We knew there would be complications, but we also knew that we could not survive alone anymore. We needed help. And perhaps," she added, glancing at Toby, "you need help too." Wyatt stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The storm showed no signs of abating. Even if he wanted to send these women away, even if every practical instinct screamed at him to undo his brother's foolishness, the blizzard had made that choice for him. They were trapped together, at least for tonight. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. How could this possibly work? Four brothers who never asked for brides. Four sisters who never revealed they were family. Trapped together by a storm on Christmas Eve. It sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. But here is what I have learned about the most extraordinary love stories. They never begin with perfect circumstances. They begin with chaos. They begin with fear. They begin with desperate people making desperate choices, and somehow, against all odds, finding exactly what they needed in the last place they expected. If you believe that love can bloom in the most unlikely soil, hit that subscribe button now and keep watching, because what happens next in that snowbound cabin will challenge everything these 8 people thought they knew about trust, about family, and about the healing power of second chances. Wyatt turned from the window. His face was hard, but something in his eyes had shifted almost imperceptibly. "You can stay the night," he said. "The storm will not break until morning at the earliest. After that, we will discuss what happens next." Josephine opened her mouth to argue, but Margaret silenced her with a look. "That is fair," Margaret said. "We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves, to show you that this arrangement, unconventional as it may be, could work. Give us time." "How much time?" "Until New Year," she proposed. 1 week. If after 7 days you still want us gone, we will leave without argument. But give us the opportunity to demonstrate our value. We are not afraid of hard work. We are not delicate flowers who will wilt at the first sign of difficulty. We are survivors, Mr. Callahan, just like you." The challenge in her words was unmistakable. She was not begging. She was negotiating. And despite himself, Wyatt felt a flicker of respect. 1 week, he agreed. "But understand this. Whatever my brother wrote in those letters, I made no promises. I offered no commitments. This is a trial, nothing more. We understand." He nodded curtly and turned to his brothers. "Silas, they can have the upstairs rooms. There are 4 of them. Garrett, check that the heating is working up there. Toby straightened, bracing for punishment. "We will discuss your actions later," Wyatt finished. "For now, help them get settled." As the group dispersed, breaking into smaller clusters of awkward assistants, Margaret found herself briefly alone with Wyatt. He was gathering cups from the table, his movements mechanical and controlled. "Mr. Callahan," she said quietly. He paused, but did not look at her. "I know you did not ask for this," she continued. "I know your brother forced your hand, but I want you to know something. We are not here to take from you. We are here because we hoped to find something worth giving ourselves to. A home, a purpose, a future." He finally turned, and for a moment, his mask slipped. She saw exhaustion beneath the granite exterior. She saw loneliness so profound it took her breath away. "I stopped believing in futures 3 years ago," he said. "Whatever you are looking for, Miss Whitmore, I am not certain I am capable of providing it." And then he walked away, leaving her standing in the firelight with nothing but questions and the faint, stubborn stirring of hope. Upstairs, the sisters gathered in the largest room, speaking in hushed voices while the storm raged outside. "This is madness," Josephine hissed. They do not want us here. The eldest one looks at us, like we are an infestation to be removed. He is grieving, Cordelia said softly, setting her satchel on the bed. They all are. Did you see their faces? They are drowning in sorrow. That is not our problem, Josephine countered. Is it not? Margaret asked, sinking onto the bed with a weariness she could no longer hide. We came here seeking salvation. Perhaps that is what they need too. Perhaps that is exactly why those letters found their way to us. Violet, who had remained silent throughout the entire ordeal, finally spoke. Her voice was small, but steady. I am tired of running, she said. I am tired of being afraid. If there is even a chance that this place could be safe, that these men could be good, I want to take it. I have to take it. Because I cannot go back. I cannot. The weight of what she did not say pressed down on all of them. Margaret crossed to her youngest sister and took her hands gently. We will not go back, she promised. Whatever happens, we face it together. And we face it here. Through the window, the blizzard continued its assault, sealing them in with 4 strangers who were wrestling with their own demons just down the hall. Christmas Eve in Copper Ridge, Wyoming. 8 broken people under one roof, and the faint, impossible possibility that something beautiful might grow from the wreckage. The blizzard raged for 3 more days. 3 days of forced proximity. 3 days of awkward silences and accidental touches. 3 days of 8 strangers slowly, reluctantly, inevitably beginning to see each other as something more. It started with small things. Margaret rose before dawn on the first morning, driven by years of habit and the desperate need to prove her worth. She found the kitchen cold, the stove unlit, and set about building a fire with hands that were more accustomed to needle and thread than kindling and matches. She did not hear Wyatt enter. You are up early. She startled, nearly dropping the match, and turned to find him standing in the doorway. He looked like he had not slept, his shirt untucked, his jaw shadowed with stubble, his eyes carrying the weight of too many restless nights. I could not sleep, she admitted. Strange bed. Strange house. Strange situation. Yes, that too. He crossed to the stove and took the matches from her hand. His fingers brushed hers, and something flickered between them, gone before either could name it. Let me, he said. The flue sticks. You have to know the trick. She watched as he coaxed the fire to life with practiced ease, his movements efficient and sure. There was a competence to him that she found unexpectedly attractive, a quiet capability that spoke of years spent solving problems and shouldering burdens. You run this ranch alone, she observed, since your parents passed. With my brothers, he corrected, though sometimes it feels like alone. I understand that feeling, she said quietly. More than you know. He glanced at her then, really looked at her, and for a moment, the walls between them thinned. Your sisters, he said. They depend on you. They are my responsibility. That must be exhausting. She blinked, caught off guard by his perception. No one had ever acknowledged the weight before. No one had ever seen past her competence to the weariness beneath. Sometimes, she admitted, but they are worth it. He nodded slowly, something shifting in his expression. I used to believe that too, he said. That if I just worked hard enough, carried enough weight, I could protect the people I loved. Then I learned that some things cannot be protected against. Some losses cannot be prevented, no matter how strong you are. He turned back to the stove, shutting down the vulnerability as quickly as it had appeared. Coffee will be ready in 10 minutes, he said. Wake your sisters. There is work to be done. But Margaret had seen behind the mask, if only for a moment, and she understood now that Wyatt Callahan was not cold. He was terrified of caring again, terrified of losing again. She recognized that fear because she carried it herself. Elsewhere in the house, other connections were forming. Garrett had taken to avoiding the common areas, but the snowbound conditions made true isolation impossible. On the second day, he retreated to the barn to check on the horses and found Violet already there, speaking softly to a chestnut mare. She did not see him at first, and he stood frozen in the doorway, watching. Her voice was gentle, barely above a whisper, her hand stroking the horse's muzzle with infinite tenderness. There was something heartbreakingly fragile about her, something that called to the broken places inside him. She understands, Violet was saying to the mare. She knows what it is like to be afraid, to flinch at shadows, to trust nobody. Garrett's throat tightened. What happened to you, he wanted to ask. What put those shadows in your eyes that mirror the ones in mine? But he did not ask. You'd not. Because asking would mean opening doors he had spent years nailing shut, Instead, he stepped deliberately on a creaking board, announcing his presence. Violet spun around, fear flashing across her face before she controlled it. "I am sorry," she said quickly. "I did not mean to intrude. I just needed to get out of the house, and the horses, they are calming to me." "You are not intruding," Garrett said, his voice rougher than he intended. "This is a good horse. Steady temperament. Does not spook easily. Unlike me," Violet did not say, but they both heard it anyway. They stood in awkward silence, two people drowning in their own pain, not yet ready to reach for each other, but somehow unable to walk away. "What is her name?" Violet finally asked. "Clara." The word hung in the air. Garrett had not meant to say it. He had not spoken his late sister-in-law's name in years, but Wyatt had named this horse after her, a quiet memorial that nobody discussed. "That is beautiful," Violet said, and she meant it in a way that went beyond the name itself. "She was," Garrett replied. "She was beautiful." He left before Violet could see the tears threatening at the corners of his eyes. But something had cracked open between them, something small but significant. Meanwhile, Silas had retreated to his workshop, seeking comfort in the familiar language of gears and springs. He was so absorbed in his current project that he did not notice Cordelia standing in the doorway until she spoke. "What does it do?" He jumped, knocking over a tin of screws and stammering badly. I am building a..." "Breathe," Cordelia said gently, stepping into the workshop with the calm assurance of someone accustomed to soothing frightened creatures. "I am not here to judge. I am genuinely curious." Silas took a shaky breath, pushed his spectacles up his nose, and tried again. "It is a water filtration system," he managed, "for the house. The creek water carries sediment in spring. This would clean it automatically." Cordelia examined the contraption with evident interest. "May I see how it works?" For the next hour, Silas explained his invention in painstaking detail, and Cordelia listened with genuine fascination. She asked intelligent questions. She made connections he had not considered. And slowly, impossibly, his stammer began to fade. "You understand," he said finally, the wonder evident in his voice. "Most people look at my machines and see foolishness, wasted time, impractical dreaming. I spent 3 years studying herbalism under a woman who was called a witch by everyone in our neighborhood," Cordelia replied. "I understand what it is like to see value where others see only strangeness." Their eyes met, and Silas felt something shift in his chest. A door opening, a light flickering to life in a room that had been dark for far too long. And then there was Toby and Josephine. They should have been the easiest match, the youngest brother and the fierce sister. But Josephine's defenses proved nearly impenetrable. She worked harder than anyone, rising before dawn and refusing to stop until her hands cracked and bled. She was proving something, though Toby could not determine what. "You do not have to do this," he told her on the 4th day, watching her haul water from the well in temperatures that would freeze exposed skin. "Do what? Punish yourself. Whatever you are running from, whatever you did, you do not have to prove your worth through suffering." Josephine whirled on him, fury blazing in her eyes. "You know nothing about what I have done," she spat. "You know nothing about what I am running from. You are a child playing matchmaker with people's lives, and you have no idea what you have set in motion." "Then tell me," Toby said, unflinching in the face of her anger. "Tell me what we are dealing with. Because I may be young, Miss Whitmore, but I am not stupid. I see the way your sister flinches at loud noises. I see the way your eldest sister watches the road like she is expecting something terrible to arrive. And I see the way you work yourself to exhaustion, because if you stop moving, you might have to feel something." Josephine stared at him, the fight draining from her posture. "You are more perceptive than you look," she finally said. "I have had practice," he replied. "I have been watching my brothers destroy themselves for years. I know what running looks like." Before she could respond, the kitchen door banged open. Silas stood there, his face pale, holding a crumpled newspaper. "You need to see this," he said. "All of you, now. If you are feeling the tension building, if you can sense that something is about to shatter this fragile piece these 8 people have started to build, then you understand exactly where this story is heading. Drop a comment right now and tell me which couple you are rooting for most. Is it Wyatt and Margaret, 2 leaders learning to share their burdens? Garrett and Violet, 2 broken souls finding safety in each other? Silas and Cordelia, 2 outcasts discovering they speak the same language? Or Toby and Josephine, the optimist and the fighter learning to meet in the middle? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed because the next chapter is going to change everything. They gathered in the kitchen, all 8 of them, crowding around the table where Silas had spread the newspaper. It was a Philadelphia paper, 2 weeks old, likely brought by Hank Morrison, along with other delayed mail that had been accumulating at the Copper Ridge post office. The headline made Margaret's blood run cold. Prominent industrialist offers reward for information on missing sisters. Beneath it was a photograph, their photograph, taken at their mother's funeral 3 years ago. And beside it, a smaller portrait of a man with silver temples and a smile that did not reach his eyes. Cornelius Ashworth, the article read, of Ashworth Manufacturing, has expressed grave concern for the welfare of 4 young women who disappeared from Philadelphia under mysterious circumstances. He claims to be a family friend and benefactor who only wishes to ensure their safety. Margaret looked up to find Wyatt staring at her, his expression unreadable. "Who is Cornelius Ashworth?" he asked. "And why does a wealthy industrialist want to find you badly enough to post a reward in every newspaper from here to the Mississippi?" The sisters exchanged glances. The moment they had been dreading had arrived. It was Violet who spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. "He is the man who destroyed my life," she said, "and he will not stop until he drags us back to Philadelphia, no matter who he has to hurt to do it." The fire crackled in the silence that followed, but the warmth had fled the room entirely. The storm outside had finally broken, but a far more dangerous tempest was gathering on the horizon. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Wyatt stood motionless, the newspaper still clutched in his hand, his eyes moving between the photograph and the 4 women who had invaded his home. His mind was racing, calculating risks, assessing threats, doing what he had always done when danger approached. But this time, the equation was different. This time he was not just protecting his brothers. Somewhere in the past 5 days, these 4 sisters had become something more than strangers. Something he was not ready to name. "Tell me everything," he said finally. "From the beginning. No more secrets." Margaret drew a deep breath. She looked at her sisters, saw their fear, their exhaustion, their desperate hope that these men might be different from all the others who had failed them, and she made a choice. "Our father was a machinist," she began, "brilliant but impractical. He invented things, wonderful things, but he had no head for business. When our mother died, he fell apart, started drinking, started borrowing money." She paused, steadying herself. "Cornelius Ashworth owned the factory where our father worked. He saw an opportunity. He paid off our father's debts, all of them, and in exchange he demanded control of our father's patents. Every invention, past, present, and future." "That sounds almost generous," Garrett observed quietly from his position by the wall. "It was a trap," Josephine cut in, her voice hard. "Ashworth never intended to honor the agreement. He wanted to own our father completely. When Papa realized what he had signed, when he tried to fight back, Ashworth had him arrested for theft, claimed Papa had stolen tools and materials from the factory. Our father died in prison 6 months later," Cordelia added softly. "They said it was consumption, but we know the truth. He gave up. He stopped fighting." The brothers exchanged glances. They understood that kind of despair. They had watched it consume their own mother. "After Papa died, Ashworth came to us," Margaret continued. "He said he felt responsible for our welfare, said he wanted to help us, provide for us. He offered to take us into his household as wards." "Let me guess," Wyatt said grimly. "His help came with conditions. His help came with ownership," Josephine spat. "He wanted to control us the way he controlled our father, wanted us dependent on him, grateful to him, unable to refuse anything he asked." Margaret's hands clenched in her lap. "We had no choice but to accept. We had nothing. No money, no relatives, no prospects. We moved into his house and tried to survive." "What changed?" Toby asked. "What made you run?" The sisters fell silent. The fire crackled. Wind rattled the windows. It was Violet who finally spoke, her voice so quiet they had to strain to hear it. "He noticed me," she said. "I was 17 when we moved into his house. I thought his attention was fatherly at first. He gave me gifts, told me I was special, different from my sisters. I believed him." Her hands were trembling. Cordelia moved closer, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "On my 18th birthday, he called me to his study, said he had a special present for me. I went, expecting jewelry or a book or something innocent." She stopped, her breath coming faster. He tried to, she could not finish the sentence. But she did not need to. The horror on the brothers' faces showed they understood. I fought him, Violet continued, her voice stronger now. I scratched his face, drew blood, ran from the room screaming. I thought surely someone would help me. Surely someone would believe me. No one did, Margaret said, the bitterness sharp in her voice. Ashworth told everyone that Violet had seduced him, that she had thrown herself at him and become violent when he rejected her. He painted her as unstable, hysterical, dangerous. The servants believed him, Josephine added. The neighbors believed him. Even the police believed him. We were penniless orphans living on his charity. He was a wealthy, respected businessman. Our word meant nothing against his. Garrett's jaw was tight, a muscle twitching in his cheek. He knew something about being disbelieved, about carrying wounds that others refused to see. That is when Josie got involved, Cordelia said. She was working at one of Ashworth's factories at the time. I had been organizing the workers, Josephine explained, trying to improve conditions, shorten hours, raise wages. Ashworth had been looking for an excuse to get rid of me. After what happened with Violet, he had it. He blacklisted her from every factory in Philadelphia, Margaret said, made sure no one would hire any of us. Then he started tightening the noose, cutting off our food allowance, threatening to throw us into the street, making it clear that the only way we would survive was if Violet apologized and agreed to be his. She paused, her voice dropping, and not just his ward. The implication hung in the air like poison. Wyatt set down the newspaper. His face had gone cold in a way that his brothers recognized. It was the look he got before a fight, before he did something that could not be undone. So you ran, he said. We ran, Margaret confirmed. I found the matrimonial advertisements. I saw a way out. 4 brothers seeking wives in a place so remote that Ashworth would never find us. We wrote back to all 4 letters, Cordelia added. We pretended to be strangers. We thought if you knew we were sisters, you would refuse. We thought our only chance was to arrive together and hope you would not send us away. We deceived you, Margaret said, meeting Wyatt's eyes directly. I will not pretend otherwise. We lied about who we were, because the truth would have condemned us. But I am telling you the truth now, all of it, because you deserve to know what you have sheltered, what you have risked by letting us stay. She stood, drawing herself up to her full height. Cornelius Ashworth is a powerful man, she continued. He has money, influence, connections. If he finds us here, he will not simply ask for us back. He will destroy anyone who stands in his way. He will burn this ranch to the ground and call it justice. She paused, her voice breaking slightly. We should leave, tonight, before the roads become too treacherous, before we bring any more danger to your door. No. The word came from Garrett, and it surprised everyone, including himself. He pushed off from the wall, moving to stand beside Wyatt. No, he repeated. You do not run. Not anymore. Garrett, Margaret began. I spent 3 years in the cavalry, he interrupted. I saw things that still wake me up screaming. I did things I cannot speak about. And when I came home, broken and useless, my brothers did not send me away. They did not ask me to carry my burdens alone. His voice was rough with emotion. You came here looking for safety, looking for people who would stand with you instead of against you. Well, you found them. I do not care how powerful this Ashworth is. He is not taking anyone from this house. Silas stepped forward, adjusting his spectacles nervously. Garrett is right, he said, his stammer barely noticeable. I have spent my whole life being underestimated, being dismissed. Cordelia is the first person who ever looked at my work and saw value, who looked at me and saw something worth knowing. He glanced at his brothers. I will not let anyone take that away. Toby moved to stand with them. I brought you here, he said to the sisters. That makes you my responsibility, and I know I am the youngest. I know you all think I am just a foolish boy who does not understand consequences, but I understand this. Family is not just blood. Family is who you choose, who you fight for. He looked at Josephine, his eyes steady. I choose you, all of you. The sisters stared at the 4 brothers, standing united in their defense, and something cracked open in Margaret's chest. For so long she had carried everything alone. For so long she had expected nothing from anyone. And now these men, these strangers who owed them nothing, were offering to stand in the path of a storm for them. She looked at Wyatt, the only one who had not spoken. And you, she asked quietly, what do you choose? Wyatt was silent for a long moment. His eyes moved across the room, taking in his brothers, These 4 women who had upended everything, the life he had so carefully constructed to keep himself from feeling anything. Then he looked at Margaret. 3 years ago, I buried my wife and my son on the same day, he said. I swore I would never let myself care about anyone that deeply again. Caring meant losing, and losing meant a kind of pain I could not survive twice. He paused. Then you arrived, you and your sisters. You invaded my house, disrupted my routines, forced me to see things I had been avoiding, forced me to feel things I had been burying. He stepped closer to her. I tried to hate you for it, he admitted. Tried to find reasons to send you away. But the truth is, Margaret Whitmore, you are the first person in 3 years who has made me believe that maybe there is still something worth living for. Something beyond just surviving. He took her hands in his. Cornelius Ashworth can bring all the money and influence and hired men he wants. I have faced blizzards that could kill a man in minutes. I have faced droughts that threatened to destroy everything my father built. I have faced grief so heavy I could barely breathe. His jaw tightened. I am not afraid of one corrupt businessman from Philadelphia. Let him come. Let him try to take what is ours. Margaret's eyes were shining. Ours, she repeated. Ours, Wyatt confirmed. All of us, together. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe that love is worth fighting for and that family is who shows up when everything falls apart, then I need you to hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that second chances are real. And subscribe to this channel because you do not want to miss the conclusion of this incredible journey. 2 days later, the roads cleared enough for travel, and on the morning of the 3rd day, a black carriage appeared on the horizon. Cornelius Ashworth had found them. He arrived with 2 hired men, rough-looking fellows with holstered pistols and dead eyes. The carriage stopped in front of the Callahan ranch house, and Ashworth descended with the casual confidence of a man who had never been refused anything in his life. He was exactly as the sisters had described. Silver temples, expensive suit, smile that did not reach his eyes. He looked at the ranch house with undisguised contempt. Gentlemen, he called out as the brothers emerged onto the porch, I am looking for the Whitmore sisters. I have reason to believe they are residing here under false pretenses. Wyatt stepped forward, positioning himself between Ashworth and the door. No one here by that name, he said flatly. Come now, Ashworth replied, his smile widening. Let us not play games. I have spent considerable resources tracking these women across the country. They are unstable, troubled, potentially dangerous. I am simply here to take them home where they can receive proper care. Proper care, Garrett repeated. Is that what you call it? Ashworth's eyes narrowed slightly. He studied Garrett with new interest. I am a family friend, he said. A benefactor. Their late father owed me considerable debts, which I have graciously forgiven. I have only their best interests at heart. The door opened behind the brothers, and Margaret stepped out, her sisters close behind. Her face was pale but composed. Your interests, Cornelius, she said clearly. Naturals. Neveras. Ashworth's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the predator beneath. But he recovered quickly. Margaret, darling, he said, spreading his hands. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. Come home. We can discuss everything civilly. There is nothing to discuss, Margaret replied. We are not your property. We never were. Your father's debts were paid in full by the patents you stole from him, Josephine interrupted. Patents that have made you millions. You owe us, Ashworth. Not the other way around. Ashworth's smile vanished entirely. I see you have poisoned these simple frontier men against me, he said coldly. Very well. If you will not come willingly, there are other methods. He gestured to his hired men, who moved forward with hands on their pistols, but they stopped when they saw Garrett raise his rifle. Silas produced a shotgun from behind the door. Even Toby held a pistol with steady hands. I would not, Wyatt said quietly. This is Wyoming territory. We have different laws here. A man comes onto another man's property with armed thugs, threatens his family. That man might not leave the same way he came. Ashworth's face reddened. You cannot do this. I am Cornelius Ashworth. I have connections in every major city. I will destroy you. I will have this ranch seized. You will do nothing, Wyatt interrupted. Because here is what is going to happen. You are going to get back in your carriage. You are going to return to Philadelphia. And you are going to forget that the Whitmore sisters ever existed. And if I refuse, then I will wire every newspaper from here to Boston, Margaret said. I will tell them exactly what you did to my sister, what you tried to do. I will name names, give dates, provide details. Your reputation, your business, your precious social standing, all of it will be destroyed. No one will believe you, Ashworth snarled. You are nobodies. Maybe, Margaret agreed. But once the story is out there, people will start looking closer, start asking questions. Your workers will talk. Your servants will talk. How many other women have you terrorized, Cornelius? How many others will come forward once someone is brave enough to speak first? Ashworth's face had gone gray. For the first time since his arrival, he looked uncertain. This is not over, he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Yes, it is, Wyatt replied. Get off my land. Do not come back. And if I ever hear of you troubling these women again, I will come to Philadelphia myself, and I will not be as polite as I am being now. For a long moment, Ashworth stood frozen, his eyes darting between the armed men, the defiant women, the rifles pointed at his chest. His hired thugs shifted nervously. Whatever he was paying them, it clearly was not enough to die for. Finally, without another word, he turned and climbed back into his carriage. The driver whipped the horses, and the black vehicle retreated down the road, growing smaller until it vanished entirely over the horizon. Nobody moved. Then Violet let out a sob and collapsed against Garrett, who caught her instinctively, wrapping his arms around her as she cried. It was the first time he had willingly touched another person in years. Is it over? Cordelia whispered. Is it really over? Silas reached for her hand. It is over, he said softly. You are safe, all of you. That night, after the fear had faded, and something like peace had settled over the household, Wyatt found Margaret standing on the porch, watching the stars emerge over the mountains. He came to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. For what? For how I treated you when you first arrived. For the coldness, the suspicion, the ultimatums. Margaret smiled slightly. You were protecting your family. I understand that better than most. I was protecting myself, Wyatt corrected. There is a difference. He turned to face her. When Clara died, I swore I would never care about anyone that deeply again, he said. I built walls so high I could not see over them. And then you came along with your impossible situation, and your fierce sisters, and your absolute refusal to give up. And suddenly, those walls did not seem as important anymore. Wyatt, Margaret began. Let me finish, he said. I am not good at this. I am not good at words or feelings or any of the things that matter. But I need you to know something. He took her hands in his. When Ashworth showed up today, when he threatened to take you away, I felt something I have not felt in 3 years. I felt terror. Real, absolute terror. Not because of the danger, but because I could not bear the thought of losing you. Margaret's breath caught. I know this started as a deception, Wyatt continued. I know we are still strangers in many ways, but I am asking you, Margaret Whitmore, to give me a chance to become something more, to stay here, to build something with me. He paused. I am asking you to marry me. For a long moment, Margaret could not speak. All the years of sacrifice, all the burdens she had carried, all the times she had put everyone else first, they had led her here, to this moment, to this man who saw her, truly saw her, for the first time in her life. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Inside the house, 3 other conversations were happening simultaneously. Garrett found Violet in the kitchen, still shaky from the day's events. I have nightmares, he told her bluntly. I wake up screaming. Some days I cannot speak at all. I am broken in ways that might never heal. Violet looked at him with those storm-gray eyes that had seen their own share of darkness. So am I, she said simply. Maybe we can be broken together, he offered. Help each other find the pieces. I would like that, Violet replied. Very much. In the workshop, Silas was showing Cordelia his latest invention by lamplight. I know I am strange, he said, not looking at her. I know I do not fit in this world. But when I am with you, I feel like maybe that is acceptable. Maybe being different is not the same as being wrong. Cordelia took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. You are the most extraordinary person I have ever met, she said, and I will spend the rest of my life reminding you of that, if you will let me. The kiss that followed was clumsy and perfect. Everything a first kiss should be. And in the barn, Toby found Josephine brushing down the horses, her movements quick and agitated. You are still wound up, he observed. You almost got yourself killed today, she shot back. pointing a gun at armed men when you have probably never even fired one. I have fired plenty of guns, Toby said mildly. Living on a ranch tends to require that. Josephine whirled to face him. This is not a joke, she snapped. You could have died. Your brothers could have died. All because of us. Because we brought our trouble to your door. Toby stepped closer. You brought more than trouble, he said. You brought life back to this house. You brought purpose. You brought 4 women who are brave enough to cross a continent for a chance at something better. He reached for her hand, and for once, she did not pull away. I know you think you have to fight everyone, he continued. I know you think caring about someone is just another way to get hurt. But I am not going to hurt you, Josephine. I am not going to leave. I am not going to give up. She stared at him, this young man with his endless optimism, and felt something crack open inside her. You are infuriating, she whispered. I know, he grinned, but you like me anyway. I must be losing my mind, she muttered. Then lose it with me, he said. For where? The kiss she gave him was not gentle. It was fierce and demanding, and full of every emotion she had been suppressing for years. And when it ended, she was crying, which made her furious, which made him laugh, which made her kiss him again. 1 week later, on New Year's Day, the Callahan Ranch hosted its first celebration in years. The town of Copper Ridge came out in full, curious about the strangers who had arrived on Christmas Eve and apparently conquered the most stubborn bachelors in Wyoming territory. There was food and music and dancing, and 4 couples who could not stop looking at each other like they had discovered something precious and unexpected. The weddings were held in spring, when the snow finally melted and the wildflowers bloomed across the mountain meadows. 4 brides in dresses that Cordelia designed and Margaret sewed. 4 grooms in their best Sunday clothes, looking nervous and hopeful and completely in love. Wyatt and Margaret were married first, the 2 pillars, the 2 eldest, finally laying down their bourbons long enough to reach for joy. Garrett and Violet followed, their vows spoken quietly, privately, a promise between 2 broken souls who had found healing in each other. Silas and Cordelia wed, surrounded by his inventions and her herbs, creating a life that made perfect sense to them, even if no one else understood. And Toby and Josephine, the sunshine and the storm, were married last, their ceremony interrupted twice by arguments, and 3 times by laughter, and once by a kiss that lasted so long the minister had to clear his throat. The Callahan Ranch grew over the years that followed. Children came, one after another, a chaos of cousins who grew up together, who knew from their earliest days that family was not just blood but choice, that love was not the absence of struggle, but the commitment to struggle together. Margaret became the heart of the community, her quiet strength touching every life in Copper Ridge. Josephine organized the workers at the lumber mill until conditions improved for everyone. Cordelia established the town's first proper medical practice, saving lives with her herbs and her wisdom. And Violet, gentle Violet, found her voice at last, teaching other survivors that shame belonged to their abusers, never to themselves. The brothers changed too. Wyatt learned to smile again, to find joy in small moments, to lead with love instead of just duty. Garrett's nightmares faded over time, replaced by dreams of the future he was building. Silas's inventions made the ranch prosper beyond anyone's expectations, and he never stammered again when speaking to his wife. And Toby, who had started it all with 4 desperate letters, watched his family flourish and knew that sometimes the foolish dreams of youth are the wisest dreams of all. Cornelius Ashworth never troubled them again. Word reached them years later that his business had collapsed under the weight of scandal, that former victims had indeed come forward, that he had died alone and ruined in a boarding house, far from anyone who remembered his name. Justice, as it turns out, sometimes arrives late, but it arrives, and in a valley in Wyoming surrounded by mountains that touch the sky, 4 brothers and 4 sisters built a legacy that would echo through generations, a testament to the truth that love finds a way. That family is who you fight for, and that the greatest adventures often begin with a single act of desperate hope. 4 mail-order brides who turned out to be sisters. 4 brothers who found the courage to love again, and 1 Christmas Eve that changed everything. If this story has moved you, if you believe in second chances and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to hear that hope is never foolish, and subscribe to Wild Heart Tales for more stories that will touch your soul and remind you what matters most. What part of this journey touched you the deepest? Which couple made you believe in love again? Drop a comment below and tell me. I read every single one, And remember, the greatest love stories do not begin with perfect circumstances. They begin with two people brave enough to try, despite everything, to build something beautiful together. Until next time, keep your heart wild and your hope alive.